Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Tuesday, June 4th. It is the first episode of June as the NFL offseason continues to fly by. It almost feels like, in a way, this is the last month without, I don't know, not football because preseason doesn't start till August, but with training camp starting in late July, that kind of feels like football officially makes its return. So from training camp, this is the last month until training camp begins late in July. There's a ton of OTA stuff going on right now. Mandatory mini camp has started up for a couple teams. It's a little bit later on in the coming weeks. So lots to be excited about. Weather's getting warmer. Football is upon us, and a loaded summer is on the horizon. DiMari, we got a lot to discuss. A lot of contracts have been handed out since the last time we spoke last weekend, and we've got a lot to break down. So how you doing, man?
I am doing good, and perfectly like you just said, football is starting to kind of pick up back here. And I know off season is a time that we absolutely dread, but
Yeah.
it's been so much news going on. So it feels like without the games, we are still in the heart of football season. And next thing you
Yep.
know, preseason will be here and week one will be here shortly. So I am excited to get into today's show. We got a lot of good topics, starting off with Hard Knocks. We finally
Yep.
got our team that's being listed.
Yeah, totally. Glad you mentioned that right off the bat. That's what we'll get into here to open up the show today is Hard Knocks, as the Chicago Bears have been named the Hard Knocks team for 2024. As you can see here, this was the official press release. HBO, Hard Knocks training camp with the Chicago Bears. They always do a great job with the covers. Last year, of course, Hard Knocks training camp with the New York Jets. It's always interesting to see the teams that they pick. 2 years ago was the Lions. Last year was the Jets. This year it's the Bears. They've also got a new Hard Knocks coming out off season with the New York Giants. So that'll be interesting. And then, of course, you've got your in-season Hard Knocks. So this will be the training camp. I think the training camp Hard Knocks is the best production that HBO does for the NFL. Just the time of year. The episodes are always great during the season. It's, you got football on, stuff like that. You don't really, I don't know. You don't really need that Hard Knocks aspect of things during the season as much as more during training camp when the excitement's being built up. But, one of the biggest things that I think you look when you find out that who the Hard Knocks team is the storylines. Last year, for example, the Jets were the talk of the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, you got Sauce, Garrett Wilson, all these great pieces. They were on top of the NFL, and ton of storylines for a perfect team for Hard Knocks. This year, it feels the same way. The Chicago Bears were almost one of the perfect teams for Hard Knocks heading into this season, where you have the number one overall pick, you take Caleb Williams, and it's not even just Caleb Williams. It's DJ Moore. It's the addition of Keenan Allen. They drafted Rome Odunze with that second first-round pick, number 9 overall. You've obviously added DeAndre Swift to that running back group that desperately needed help. And then you go to the defensive side of the football, and you've got some pieces like Kevin Byard. You, of course, brought in Montez Sweat last season, Tremaine Edmonds. So they're loaded with talent. What is your thoughts on the Bears and some of the storylines that'll come with this squad?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. It's going to be quite exciting to see Caleb Williams, who I know everyone's very excited to see, especially since technically he was the Bears, I guess you can say, starting quarterback since November. Like,
Yeah.
it was all keyed in on him to, be the guy for Chicago. So it's going to just be kind of fun to see his adjustment from college to the NFL, being that first pick and stepping in as a day one starter. Kind of how we talked about off air. I don't think I've seen a Hard Knocks where the guy or the team that features has a guy that's coming in to be the day one starter as a rookie. And we're going to get the opportunity to see that just his adjustment and his adjustment with the weapons, like you said, with Keenan Allen coming over. You still got DJ Moore and you get DeAndre Swift. So just seeing him kind of gel with those veterans that are going to help Chicago, hopefully find a way to get into the playoffs this year. It's going to be quite fun to see what that group builds in training camp and to see if they can carry that over into the regular season, and which I think they can. We talked a little off air about what we think their roster is going to look like roster wise. So really excited to see the Bears, and I just love Hard Knocks all in general.
Yeah.
Just I can't say it sucks. Kind of that last few episodes, guys start to get cut. Some fan
Yeah.
favorites, ends up getting cut, or fan favorites make the team. Last year for me it was Antonio Gibson and Jason Brownlee. So hopefully this year Chicago might have a guy or two that guys everyone just falls in love with. They make the team have a huge impact. So I'm really excited for Hard Knocks.
Yeah, definitely. And this will be a really good opportunity too for kind of Caleb Williams to show that like he's NFL ready. Obviously they'll take you inside the locker room, take you inside the meetings, and they'll pick certain clips, of course, to put on the show. So you're not going to get completely raw, uncut all the time, camera on Caleb Williams 24/7. But you're going to see a lot of what he's like in the meeting room. How, like you mentioned, how he's adjusting to the NFL game, how he's taking that number one overall pick role going into training camp, how he's learning and building chemistry, as you mentioned, with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, and obviously the addition of DeAndre Swift as well in the backfield. We're getting a really good look of what Caleb Williams is doing so far as a rookie, how Caleb Williams is doing as a rookie. I think Bears fans coming out of training camp is going to feel one of two ways. I think you're going to feel really, really good, like, man, this guy is ready. Or you might feel the opposite way of, he's maybe seemed overwhelmed or whatever the case may be. And of course, Hard Knocks is going to spin it where there's going to be high moments. There's also going to be low moments. It happens every year where there's going to be adversity that they're going to hit. And of course, we'll see what Caleb Williams does to overcome that. But it's a great opportunity for him for me, I'm a little bit, I don't know if I'd say I'm a doubter. I just always thought that Justin Fields, it wasn't so much that I never liked Caleb Williams. It was more so I always thought Justin Fields just got the raw under the stick. And I always thought that if they gave him another chance, but either way, and there's been some Justin Fields stuff that has come out that maybe
Yep.
he wasn't any good anyway. So what do I know? But I'm a Jet fan. I don't see good quarterback play, so I probably really can't even evaluate much anyway. But it's just for the doubters, for the people that maybe don't think that this is going to work out, who have a great chance early on to prove that's not the case. It's also lots of pressure. I mean, there's cameras everywhere. And I was at 2 training camp practices last year with the Jets and Hard Knocks. There is literally cameras everywhere. Like Saleh or the head coach could be talking to, Hackett or whoever, or the offense coordinator, and there's a boom mic arm right there. Like it's crazy. So looking forward to it. Any other thoughts on Hard Knocks heading to Chicago for the summer?
I have this weird feeling. I just really have this strange feeling. So, like you kind of said with the Lions and the Jets, it seems, and this is with an Aaron Rodgers injury, kind of things didn't go as planned. But it seems as if the last 2 seasons, the teams that were featured on Hard Knocks, and even the Dolphins with the in-season Hard Knocks, all of a sudden just have this great year and this team that comes out of nowhere and surprises a lot of people. Chicago might be that team. I mean, actually, I just wrote an article that got published of me picking them to actually make it to the playoffs. So when and if they do, I called it first. But I won't be surprised if Chicago is kind of on that trend with the other two, where it's just poverty franchise and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
a front runner. I can see it happening.
Yeah, you make a good point because over the last couple years, really over forever, people have always wondered if Hard Knocks was like a distraction for teams and if it actually affects them. And I thought from a Jet perspective, Aaron Rodgers going down was awful, but there were some players that came out and said that in the offseason or during training camp, they were a little, with all the cameras, all the hype. It wasn't so much the cameras and the Hard Knocks. It was more so all the hype. They kind of got caught up in that and kind of lost sight of the work that actually needed to be done behind the scenes to get the job done. But yeah, you make a great point. The Detroit Lions, who were the laughingstock of the NFL, went on Hard Knocks. Obviously, they had that great, 2022, right? That was 2022 because last year 2023, 2022 season. They're a very successful year. We went into that last off season. Everyone knew the Lions are going to come in 2023. They're going to make, they're coming. They're going to have a huge year in 2023, and it's going to be. And sure enough, I think they exceeded actually probably more expectations than some of us thought, getting all the way to the NFC title game. Dolphins, great regular season. Typical Dolphins fashion, though, in the playoffs, but still, regular season, they were successful. Now for the Bears, it's similar. Another rebuilding team. Rough year last year, rough past couple years. New quarterback, new life. We'll see what Chicago can do, but definitely a team full of storylines and should be a fun watch. Now on to contracts across the NFL. Feels like for like 2-3 weeks we've been talking about, every week there's been a different contract story, different contract extension story, rumors, all that stuff. Justin Jefferson has been all over the news with contract negotiations, but man, did he get paid. A massive, historic 4-year, $140 million deal with $110 million guarantee. This will make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, which is just unbelievable. It also includes $88.743 million due at signing. So it's just crazy. This will run through the 2028 season. So all the rumors, all the potential of, oh, Justin Jefferson days in Minnesota are numbered. He's going to get traded, hold out, whatever the case may be. Give him credit. He bet on himself. Before last season, they offered him a contract for $28 million per year. Bet on himself, had a huge year again in 2023, goes out there, gets himself $7 million per year with a $35 million AAV in this contract. What are your thoughts on this move? It feels like it's been coming for a while, but it's finally official. And whoever the quarterback is in Minnesota, they got their number one weapon locked up for long term.
Yeah, I just couldn't imagine drafting like Jalen Rager over Justin Jefferson. There's nobody in their right mind would ever do such a thing like that.
Yeah.
But just anyways, it's good to see him get his money. I know there was a situation where he was holding out because he wasn't too sure about who would be the quarterback in Minnesota. So I guess, and I think we talked about this last show. Kind of, is it with T Higgins? But we also mentioned Jefferson. Like, is it all right? I want my money, or is it I want to win? So I think for Jefferson, he is happy in Minnesota, so he got the contract he wanted. I think he loves being a Viking. That is why he's there. They locked him up, and I mean, perfect time to do it, especially with everyone getting their extensions. We seen him on Raw, and Ayuk still wants to contract CeeDee Lamb, so different guys still looking for contracts. But just for Jefferson, I mean, he's been dominant. You can argue he has been the best wide receiver in football. I know there's a lot of names you can throw up there, but even looking at his year last year, I think he missed, was it 5, 6, 7 games and still had like a crazy year. So for, again, perfectly like you just said, for McCarthy or Sam Darnold, whoever it is, I just know they're happy to have that number one receiver locked up long term. But I'm very curious if you saw the clause in his contract where it says, I think year 4 it might be, if they win a Super Bowl by his 4th year, they will make him the highest paid player in the NFL, which outrageous to me. I don't see Minnesota doing that. And anything can change though. But as of now, just in this moment, happy for Jefferson. I'm glad he got his contract.
Yeah, I don't know if Minnesota and Super Bowl uh, belong in the same
Go well
sentence.
together.
But yeah, no,
Yeah, it's not a good
not at
mix.
all.
It's oil and water. It's not
Yeah,
a great mix.
yeah, it's pretty bad. But yeah, resets the market. And yeah, I think Justin Jefferson, I mean, this was a guy last year that played 10 games, missed 7 games last season, and still had 1,074 yards. I mean, this was a guy that probably, if he plays the entire seasons, probably at 1,700, 1,600 yards, which is just ridiculous numbers. I mean, you look at his career, he's had 5,899 yards, 392 receptions, and 60 games played. Those are just ridiculous numbers. 30 career touchdowns. When he's healthy and he's out there, he's the best receiver in football. CeeDee Lamb obviously is up there as well. Tyreek Hill's up there as well. It's kind of that trio. Then it's that they're on like I'd say it's Justin Jefferson, a tier of his own.
I'll say can't leave out Jamar Chase,
Yeah,
but
Jamar
Jefferson's
Chase is
definitely a tier of his own.
I would say it's almost like the quarterback discussion. Like Mahomes is the tier, he's on a tier in itself, and then you still have then like the second tier is like your Burrows, your Jacksons, your Strouds entering that name. Want to put Allen up there as well. Same thing with receivers. It's you make a good point about Chase. It's like Jefferson, and then second tier is Lamb, Hill, Chase, those elite receivers. But he's a stud. He's great. He's dominant. He mentioned now he got this contract done. Now it's all about, getting back to work and trying to figure out a way to win some games for Minnesota, which is not an easy task for any player, but we'll see what he can do.
Well, two things. Just sorry, keep going. I'll mention it afterwards. You might get into it.
No, yeah, just quickly. It also seems like the trade rumors or the possibility of him being traded were all kind of just, I guess, what do they call it? Smoke and mirrors. I think nothing really too true. it probably was more the media trying to stir stuff up than anything. Because Kevin O'Connell kind of said they never. I mean, let's be honest here. Even if they couldn't have agreed to an extension, you'd be so stupid to draft a quarterback top 10 and then trade a generational receiver at 2 months after you draft him. I don't care how much money he wants. You got to pay him. So that's just the point I wanted to make there as well.
Well, just sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Just what I wanted to
Oh, no, you're
throw
good.
in is Minnesota has it good. I mean, I know it kind of things didn't end too well for the Timberwolves, but as
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards and Justin Jefferson, like the two faces of, I guess you can say, your sports franchise, like you really got it good right now for all Minnesota fans. So cheers to that. But a question where I'm just curious, and so there's this guy that works with me, security guard, who is a huge Vikings fan. We talk football every day I go in. So I just want your opinion on it. Personally, I feel if Minnesota still had Kirk Cousins going in to next year, a Super Bowl possibility would be very likely. And I know we just said those two don't mix, but
Yeah.
just the weapons Minnesota has. I mean, with Kirk Cousins, who knows that system so well and is so loved throughout the city and those type of things, just all the things kind of Minnesota needed in a guy. That's what Kirk Cousins was. And then Jefferson gets the contract, and people play better when they get contracts. People play worse when they get their contracts. I don't see Jefferson playing any worse. So I just think with Kirk Cousins, like they had to decide, hey, let's bring you back, let's run it back, even if it's only for 2 years. I honestly think they would have had a great chance at a Super Bowl. So I want to know your opinion on that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Their weapons are, I mean, up there with some of the best in football. They also added Aaron Jones this offseason as well, which I don't know if you'd say flew under the radar, but was something that was very, big for them. So you added Aaron Jones. Jefferson's locked up. Jordan Addison is a monster, kind of somebody that I feel like Jordan Addison's great. I always feel like, though, the rest of his career, he's always going to kind of fly under the radar because he plays with Justin Jefferson. So, and that's good for him, but I always feel like people are going to, you can't forget, my point is you can't forget about Jordan Addison
Yeah.
either. He's only getting better. A lot of people always want to talk about Jefferson, but Addison's a beast as well. So you got him, you added TJ Hawkinson. Of course, you traded for him, last year, 2 years ago from Detroit. The only thing, if they had Kirk Cousins, their offense would be one of the best in football. The only thing I think probably holding Minnesota back from if they had Kirk Cousins legitimately for a Super Bowl is that defense. That defense is probably the only thing. They added Blake Cashman in the offseason, who's coming off a career year. A guy from a Jet fan perspective would have never expected after his years with the Jets. This is a guy that got hurt rolling out of bed. I would have never expected him to have a season like he had in Houston. But very good year for him. Give him credit to D'Amico Ryans, kind of turning him into a really good player. So you added him. They've also got Andrew Van Ginkel, who they added from Miami. Got Harrison Smith still back there. Harrison Phillips, Jonathan Greenyard. That'd be the only thing. Like, offensively, they're great. Defensively, there's some questions. I always go back to, 2 years ago, they had a home playoff game against Daniel Jones and the Giants. And Daniel Jones, I don't know if carved him up is the right word. He wasn't that good, but Daniel Jones beat him up. If you would have to go against the Niners in the divisional round, I don't see how that defense is stopping CMC, Debo, and Ayuk. That's the only thing. But
I agree.
offensively, yeah, they could compete with anybody if they had Kirk.
I mean, they'll score 40, but they'll give up 55.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's one thing.
yeah. And by the way, I'm hearing already the JJ to JJ. It's the new name.
Oh,
JJ McCarthy to
goodness.
Justin Jefferson. I heard that one before. Wilson to Wilson.
Well, JJ to JJ might only be probably 2, 3 times a year when they're probably getting blown out by 30. Other than
Yeah.
that, it's not going to be that often.
It would be Sammy Dimes to Justin Jefferson.
I can't. What I feel so bad from Aaron Jones. I just know, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards didn't really have to take a lot of body blows just 'cause they had a great offensive line in Michigan, but just Aaron Jones, the amount of body blows he's going to take from all the handoffs. I don't know if you've seen the NCAA like wear and tear meter on the new
Yeah.
game, where if you get hit too hard, Aaron Jones is going to be covered in red after every game if JJ McCarthy is the starter. So prayers up for him way in advance, because it's going to be a long, it's going to be a long season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The whole JJ McCarthy thing is going to be very interesting. I think after, the NFL witnessed Zach Wilson, I think everyone's kind of like from now on, everybody's going to be like, okay, who is the Mahomes coming out of the draft, and then who is like the Zach Wilson coming out of the draft? There's always going to be that comparison, and like for a lot of people, JJ McCarthy screams Zach Wilson, but I mean, who knows? We'll see.
We
Um,
will see.
yeah. So anyway, we move on here. Another extension. Nico Collins, not as large as Justin Jefferson's, but still got himself a payday. Nico Collins, breakout receiver really right now for the Houston Texans, agrees to a 3-year, $72.75 million contract extension. It also includes $52 million guaranteed. So Nico Collins locks himself up a really nice payday after a very, very big 2023 campaign and what should be a massive 2024 campaign for him, Tank Dell, Diggs, and that entire Texans offense. What was your reaction to this one?
First, without looking it up, do you know where Nico Collins went to college?
Nico Collins?
Yes.
I'm just gonna throw a guess out there. So, since we were just talking about him, I don't know. Michigan, because we were just talking about JJ McCarthy.
The answer, I believe, unless I read it wrong, is Michigan. I believe
Is it
it is
Michigan?
Michigan. Do you want to confirm it just to look it up?
Yeah, I could check now. And no, by the way, for the viewers, I do not have the answer on my ceiling. Okay, if I was looking up, let's see. Nico Collins. Yes, Michigan. Wow.
All right, so I briefly remember
AJ
some Nico
McCarthy already
Collins.
making clutch plays. I
Well,
mean,
I won't even say that,
Lord.
but I do remember Nico Collins carving up, I believe it was Florida in a bowl game, if I'm correct. But that is just to my point of kind of what I was going to get into. A few years ago, you're like, who is Nico Collins? Like,
Yeah.
respectfully, even myself, kind of this last year, well, not this year, but the previous year, I'm like, who in the world is Nico Collins? I don't know why I'm thinking
Yeah.
this is like this 5'9", 5'10" slot receiver who plays for Houston. Next thing you know, I look him up, I watch him a few times. This big body, 6'4" wide receiver who can absolutely run down the field, take the top off the defense. So, to my point, that contract is well deserving. I think he has come such a long way because, again, like, if he didn't carve up Florida, a lot of people probably don't know Nico Collins went to Michigan and aren't familiar with his game. But now, like, that's a guy people are targeting on fantasy, and he had a big 2023 season, like you said. 2024 is going to be even bigger with now more trust from his quarterback, and then Stephon Diggs coming over there, so
Yeah.
getting some more attention. So, not the biggest contract, but Nico Collins is well deserving. It was it 3 years, 72 mil. Just really deserves it. I hope he has a breakout season. Hope he stays healthy. And I just want to see this Texans team go as far as possible. I really like what they're cooking up. And a big part of it starts with him. I know Diggs is over there. I know Tank Dell is over there, but he is a glue guy for that wide receiver core. So I hope he has a great season. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And this is a guy you really were spot on there. Kind of under the radar. Was a 3rd-round pick in 2021. I just now that I'm curious, I was looking at his numbers in Michigan. Nothing special.
Nothing
His
special.
freshman
Didn't jump off the
season,
map.
yeah, his freshman season he barely played. He only had 3 catches for 27 yards. Sophomore year was better. 38 receptions, 632 yards, 2 touchdowns, or 6 touchdowns rather. And then 2019 junior year, 37 receptions, 729 yards, 7 touchdowns. So that was his best season. Um, And yeah, I mean, like you said, it was just a couple games. I was looking just for curious because they're local. What he did against Rutgers, he carved them up both years. So that Rutgers defense couldn't contain him. Not surprising. Um, but
Oh man.
I was wondering actually if I ever went to go see him play because I I was I usually go to decent chunk, good amount, a couple Rutgers games, but I've seen Michigan go there, and I'm trying to remember if I ever saw him there. But the game that he played there in 2018, I don't recall going. So it was probably a different year where I saw Michigan against Rutgers. But either way, wasn't did a whole lot in college, and then too his first 2 years in the NFL, like you said, kind of a guy that just came on randomly out of the middle of nowhere last year. He had 927 yards in his first 2 seasons, and in last year he has 1,297 yards. So you talk about a guy in his first 2 years, 24 games played, had 927 yards and just 70 receptions. And last year, 80 receptions, 1,297 yards, 8 touchdowns. 8 of his 11 touchdowns were scored last season. So 3 just the prior 2 years. So great for him. And also a ton of credit, too, for CJ Stroud. He really was able to unlock Nico Collins, a player like that who clearly had a lot of upside, but his first 2 years wasn't being used or wasn't getting the right opportunity. But a guy that really feels like they locked him up at a perfect time. You don't
Yeah.
want to wait too long where 2 years from now he could be looking at that massive, massive contract. But you also don't want to give it to him too early, too prematurely. I think it's a perfect spot. He's going into year 4. Like you mentioned, he gets a chance to play alongside Stephon Diggs. You've also got, guys like Tank Dell still there, Dalton Schultz, who they brought back. So he's not the main focus. He's going to have a chance to rack up a ton of yards this year. Well deserved for him. Texans, man. Joe Mixon. Gosh, you talk about weapons.
Scary,
They got them all.
scary, scary team.
Yeah, they're loaded. So they're going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun to watch. And we'll get into some roster stuff here in a second when we do some of our roster rankings. Now on to another contract extension in the AFC, this time in the AFC East. Jalen Waddle gets a deal done with the Miami Dolphins. It's an 3-year, $84.75 million contract extension. It includes $76 million guaranteed with $28.25 million in AAV. This is the fourth highest in the NFL with guaranteed money. It is third behind AJ Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Brown's making $84 million. Amon-Ra St. Brown's making $77 million. Although those numbers could have changed now where he ranks because Justin Jefferson secured the bag. So Jalen Waddle, Miami pretty active this offseason in the receiver market. Brought in Odell, now extend Jalen Waddle. So they lock up their core of Hill, Waddle, and Beckham for the 2024 campaign. Keeping that group together. And Waddle, who's obviously been he's been just so consistent through his first 3 seasons. Literally the same guy you can expect every single year. He's given you like the same production every single season. Everything they could have asked for out of the 2021 first round pick. What is your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, another guy who's well deserving, and like you just said perfectly, he's been so consistent. But I think this is the year he has an absolute breakout year. I know Odell's not the same guy that we've seen with the Giants, but just there's a certain level of respect that a name covers, like Odell. So I think that opens up a lot more for Jalen Waddle. Obviously, Tyreek Hill still over there. That team has a bunch of speed, and I don't know if you've seen kind of the latest pictures of Tua, but he looks a lot slimmer, a lot healthier,
He
like
looks
ready for the
different.
season. Very different. So
That
I'm
with the
just
beard,
thinking
yeah.
kind of it's gonna get used. I'm just gonna get some time to get used to it. He looks like my homeboy Brandon, like identical twins. I thought Brandon was like doing fake meet and greets as Tua in Miami because same exact guy. But yeah, just Waddle. I think he's gonna have a breakout year with Odell coming over there. And my point of Tua is Tua looks healthy and obviously took a lot of health and safety into consideration last year. So Tua on the field, better production for Jalen Waddle. So I think a bigger year this year than the last 3. So Dolphins are going to be fun to watch offensively again, like they've been the last 2 years. So I wonder who, maybe the Bills, they hang up 70 on this year. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what team they put up 70. Matter of fact, now that we're on the subject, let's take a look at their schedule. Um, let's see. We'll take a very quick look who they could put up 70 against. Ooh. Hmm.
Oh,
They don't have the Broncos back on there, so that's good for them. Or
I
good for
think
the
the
Broncos.
Broncos know better to not put the Dolphins back on there. That's like the Citadel playing Bama week 1. They're just like, we're not
Yeah.
doing that. We're not doing that again.
New England.
I
New
can see it.
England. I could see them put up 70 on New England.
I can see it.
Um,
It's gonna be in New England at that,
yeah. Right before their bye week, they'll put up 70. And they'll come out and play the Colts and maybe lose.
and probably lose by 17 points that week.
Probably. Be a nice little
That's
hangover
pretty
game for
accurate.
them.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, so that's who they're putting up 70 against. But yeah, Jalen Waddle, this year, all of them. I mean, Odell, Waddle, Hill, Tyreek Hill even might see a boost. I mean, it's crazy with three receivers, how good all three of those guys can be, having to take attention off of each of them because you've got to be focused on, one another. The defense got to be focused on Waddle and Hill. That could free up Beckham. You're trying to focus on Beckham, free up Waddle. It's really, really tough. But yeah, there's a guy, 1,000 yards, 1,015 yards in his first season, 1,356 yards in year two, 1,014 yards last year. And he also missed 3 games last season. So each of his 3 seasons, he's had 1,000 yards in his career, 251 receptions, 3,385 yards, 18 touchdowns. And like you said, it still feels like there's some meat on the bone for him to go out there and have an even bigger campaign where maybe he hits that 1,400, 1,500 yard mark, which he has yet to do so in his career. So definitely well earned for Waddle, and Miami continues to make that receiving core scary, and even more scary to come as Tyreek Hill and Waddle will be that 1-2 punch for many more years ahead. Also, some news that came out today was Christian McCaffrey resetting the running back market. He got a new contract, 2-year extension, 19 over, which averages over 19 million. Some different specifics as well on the deal. Added, I think, in addition to the 2 extra years, 2026 and 2027, the Niners added $8 million over what McCaffrey was expected to make in 2024 and 2025, while adding $24 million in guarantees. So McCaffrey gets a really big boost to his current deal. Ayuk may be next, but I don't know if McCaffrey's reset the market twice. It's funny, but I don't know if I would have won the bet on this one that McCaffrey would have gotten an extension before Ayuk. But here we are.
That's interesting. I have not thought about that. Ayuk has wanted an extension all off season.
Yeah.
Nothing about McCaffrey once has come up about wanting an extension or even an extension being in the works, and then we just get some breaking news on our NFL apps and on Twitter, whatever it
Mhm.
is. That is an interesting point. And first, just to get at McCaffrey, another guy well deserving. Everyone knows what McCaffrey did this last season. I guess so for people that don't value the running back position. I mean, when you aren't just spamming inside zone with your running back, they do have some longevity. Like they can play quite a while. So I guess for the running back market, that's pretty good. You kind of use the guys a few different ways, like you can. McCaffrey, their careers probably go a little longer. So well deserving for him. But just on the Ayuk, just if I'm Brandon Ayuk, that is kind of crazy. Like you made a very great point there that I didn't even consider. Just where's my money? Like I've been wanting an
Mhm.
extension for how long, and I've played well enough for an extension, and it's not even a way of like jealousy. I know it's coming off like a jealous angle, but it's like I want this extension. I've played good enough for this extension. I have helped elevate this offense, help elevate Brock Purdy when Debo was out. Like I am the guy. Where's my money? But and of course he loves his teammate to death. But it's like McCaffrey got his money, and then you gave him something well above the running back average, like absolutely insane. So it could be one or two ways where it could be an extension is coming, and they got McCaffrey out of the way, and now that they got the numbers on Jefferson, they could kind of work around what that annual salary might be, or Ayuk could be out of there. It can swing one or two ways right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Something I was thinking about earlier when he got the deal done, it's like that kind of came out of the middle of nowhere. But yeah, the Ayuk thing is just very, very weird. It's been weird all off season. The way they've handled that, like John Lynch literally came out publicly and said, "Oh, we're not shopping those guys anymore." Like it was like, "Oh, we're done doing that." So what you're telling me is you were shopping
That's what it sounds
Brandon
like.
Ayuk and Debo Samuel, and now all of a sudden March has hit or May has hit, and you're not. Now all of a sudden, let's lock them up long term, which you still haven't done. Very, very quietly, the Niners have had one of the more, I guess, weird off seasons in a way. Would you agree? Feels like it.
Yeah, just not too many fancy moves that I can think of top of my head. Even in the draft, some questionable picks. But I guess when you are a front runner and just one of the best rosters, like top and bottom, I guess you don't have to really do too much. But getting back to our point, though, what a few shows or every time we talk about the 49ers, like if you were this good and this close to the Super Bowl, why are you kind of sending guys off? So, yeah, what's brewing over there on the West Side is kind of confusing for a team that literally is probably has the best odds to win the Super Bowl as of right now. So I'm just as confused as you are.
Yeah. And like, yeah, but I totally agree. And that actually segues perfectly into our next segment of top 10 rosters because the Niners will definitely be on that list. They're going to be pretty high. But PFF and actually ESPN is their NFL index rankings 24. So we can compare a little bit of what PFF has to say to that as well. So, this is kind of the time of year rosters start to get filed out. There still are some minor moves to come, but basically what you see on paper now is what you're going to see. You have the draft and you kind of have that first wave of free agency. After the draft, you're starting to get all these extensions. What you see on paper is a good chance of what you're going to get. And if you're a football fan that you don't like what you see on paper, then I'm sorry. 2024 might be a long one for you. Although you really never know. You might feel confident and it still blows up in your face. So either way, PFF released their NFL power rankings or roster rankings. And this was their top 10. Then we will get into each of our own top 10. So Niners were 1. They had the Chiefs at 2, Eagles 3, Jets 4, Ravens 5, Lions 6, Texans 7, Bengals 8, Cowboys 9, and then the Bills at 10. So that was your 10. Let's think how many they had. Niners, Eagles, Lions, Cowboys. So 4 NFC teams and 4 NFC teams and 6 AFC teams because it was the Chiefs, Jets, Ravens, Texans, Bengals, Bills. So that's how they split it up. 4 NFC, 6 AFC. Niners 1, Bills 10, and then 8 other teams in between that. So I guess we'll start off. Agree with the list? Don't like it? Agree with some of it before we get into our own?
For the most part, I don't agree with it. I mean, 49ers at 1, I think, is a yes. Like we talked about off air, we don't know how great that Chiefs roster it really is, but it's like Mahomes gives it a plus 20, plus 25 boost
Yeah.
because it's Patrick Mahomes. But the rest of that list, I mean, I do like the Jets at 4. I agree with that. I just feel like the Lions are too low, the Texans are too low, and the Bengals and Bills don't deserve to be on that list. I know, like we were talking about off air, the Bengals still have questions up in the air just of what's going on with T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd left. Joe Mixon left. So I want to have them on in the top 10. And then Buffalo doesn't even have the second best roster in their division. Miami, I would have put Miami above
Yeah.
Buffalo. if it was up to me. So the list, there's a lot of things I disagree with on this list so far. How about yourself?
Yeah, you make a great point about Buffalo. We could sit here and joke about the receiving core, but actually looking at it from that perspective, you're going to put them 10 in the NFL and they're not even the second best in their division. That's a pretty big stretch there. I agree. There's some stuff I agree with, some stuff I don't. Two teams on this list that I don't have in my top 10, which we'll get to here in a second. Now to compare this to NFL Football Power Index's rankings, which they base these rankings off of like a bunch of different analytics. So I'm not 100% sure what it's all based on, but ESPN FPI released their rankings. It was Niners 1, Chiefs 2, Ravens 3, Lions 4, Bills 5. So they put the Bills at number 5, which was a very big stretch. Again, a lot of it's analytics. Having Josh Allen probably helps that a big deal. Cowboys. Wait, hold on. It was Niners 1, Chiefs 2, Ravens 3, Lions 4, Bills 5. Yeah. Cowboys 6, Bengals 7, Eagles 8, Texans 9, Packers 10, Dolphins 11, Jets were 12, which I find interesting just from a Jets perspective. Last year, the Jets at the beginning of the season, I believe were like 6 at the beginning of the year. And now they're 12 and they've gotten better. I get Aaron Rodgers coming off the torn Achilles, but this roster is 10 times better than what they had last year. And somehow they fell out of the top 10 in the NFL FPI, which I don't know, but either way, just thought that was interesting. So we'll see. But I guess we'll break down. You can give your top 5, then I'll give my top 5, and then we'll go 6 through 10 and then 6 through 10.
The top 5 for me, 49ers, I am leaving at 1. Number 2, I am going to put the Texans, just what we talked about with the additions of Houston. I think you got to put them at 2. I like the Lions at 3. I agree with PFF. I still have the Jets at 4 as well. And at 5, I have the Eagles. I know we kind of talked about how 5 and 6 could flip when I do get 6 through 10. But top 5 for now, Niners, Texans, Lions, Jets, Eagles.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. Obviously, when I was making my list off air, very similar. So I'm pretty much almost exactly that. Niners 1, Texans 2, Lions 3, Jets 4. I did put the Ravens at 5, although they're interchangeable. I think defensively, you give the advantage to the Ravens. Offensively, you give the advantage to the Eagles. I guess it's just whatever you feel is the Ravens offense further away from the Eagles offense, or is the Eagles defense further away from that Ravens defense? Like whatever you feel is worse, the weakness of their team, whatever you feel is or the weak, whatever, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Then you can go with that. I mean, I would say probably look on paper, Eagles are probably better, but actually who has proven it? Well, Baltimore's proven it time and time again that they can get to the postseason with really good defense. Lamar Jackson doing basically everything on his own and not really any elite receivers. So they've proven they can do that. Now they do have Mark Andrews, who is, when he's healthy, if you want to consider him an elite tight end, I guess you can. But still, when it comes down to an actual wide receiver, while Zay Flowers showed a lot of good things last year, he's not AJ Brown with what Jalen Hurts, of course, has in Philly. So that's definitely a debate. So that's 1 of 5. I guess I'll go 6 to 10 here since you started off with 1 to 5. 6 to 10, I'll throw the Eagles there. Again, interchangeable at 5, 6, whatever. I can honestly listen to both arguments and agree with both arguments. Put the Chiefs at 7. On paper, their roster is not that elite, but at the end of the day, I feel like you got to respect them. They got Patrick Mahomes. They got the best quarterback on the planet, arguably the best player on the planet. Isaiah Pacheco is very good. Travis Kelce, of course, is the best tight end on the planet. Defensively, they're great. Not the biggest names, but they get the job done because Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce lead the way. So I feel like their Chiefs are at 7. I also, just for me, I can't leave the Super Bowl champions out. So I'll put them at 7. Cowboys at 8. Dak, CeeDee Lamb, those two are one of the better 1-2 punches when it comes to a quarterback wide receiver tandem in football. Defensively, obviously headlined by Micah Parsons. They'll also get Trayvon Diggs back in the mix. Packers 9. The Packers, it's interesting. Not the biggest names in the world. Jordan Love, of course, headlines, but they did add Josh Jacobs. But like when it comes to a receiving perspective, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, those names don't fly off the page, but this was the team that went into Dallas last year, won a playoff game, and almost had San Francisco lose at home in a divisional round, which could have ultimately costed Kyle Shanahan his job. So Packers were really a quarter away from getting to the title game. They'll be right back in the mix there. So I'll go Packers 9-10. Is kind of split. Dolphins, Rams. I feel two teams very, very the same. Great offensively. You have some questions defensively. What will the Rams look like without Aaron Donald? And for Miami, it's not so much, they did lose Christian Wilkins. They, of course, moved on from Xavier Howard, Emmanuel Ogba, but they still do got some pieces. They added Jordan Poyer. They've got Javon Highland. You still got Jalen Ramsey. Still got Bradley Chubb. So they still got, guys. Jalen Phillips coming off the torn Achilles. They'll get him back into the mix. Probably on paper, they're probably better than the Rams defensively. So maybe you could throw them there. Quarterback wise, I'd probably take Stafford over Tua. But, it's tough. So that's my 6 through 10. So top 10 fully: Niners, Texans, Lions, Jets, Ravens, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Packers, and we'll throw the Rams on there. Why not? Put the Rams there at 10 and I'll put the Dolphins at 11 for the sake of the argument.
It's just before I get into mine, 6 through 10, it's kind of so weird because just for the viewers to better understand, for instance, just a quick spoiler, like I don't have the Chiefs as a top 10 roster, but I think the Chiefs are a lot better than a lot of these teams. So it's kind of so weird. So it's not necessarily like oh, well, this team is better than this team.
Yeah.
It's just, it's kind of hard to explain, but had to throw that out before I get into 6 through 10. So 6 and 7, I have 2 AFC North. I got Baltimore, which could flip in 5 with Philly, just like you said. And then the Browns. And I know the people are probably like, the Browns? But yes, this team went super far with Joe Flacco last year. You added Jerry Jeudy to the mix. David Njoku has played his way into at least a top 6 wide receiver. Nick Chubb is coming back, and we know what that defense brings. You just need Deshaun Watson to be 60% of what he was in Houston, and that Browns team can go pretty far. Dallas at 8, and honestly, I don't even know if I even want them in my top 10, but like we spoke about off air, it's just that defense just brings so many different factors to where I had to put them up there in 8. I think they kind of they are going to lack where they were last year offensively, even though I know Michael Gallup didn't do much, and Pollard now gone, Gallup also gone. You're going to have to rely on Dak, CD, and Brandon Cook. So I do think they take a step back offensively this year, but I'm going to keep them at 8. 9, I'm going to go with Chicago Bears, and number 1 pick, Caleb Williams. I know he's unproven, hasn't done much yet, but weapons are loaded. I like the Bears at 9. And 10 for me is going to be Kirk Cousins, who I've been high on all offseason. Really like the Falcons roster. I think just this year, Kirk Cousins is going to get the most out of Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, who all were just used criminally last year. They were out there just doing cardio, running gassers. Yeah. So now I think they got a quarterback and a head coach that will use them properly. Cousins give them that boost. So Falcons at 10. Honorable mentions for me are the Chiefs and the Dolphins, who I think have exceptional rosters. Just I think on paper, the rest of these teams roster-wise are better, but I'm not saying that they are necessarily better than the Chiefs and the Dolphins.
Yeah, I agree. It's it's interesting because like Kansas City, as you mentioned, as both of us mentioned, they have the best quarterback on the planet. That's a big deal. Not the best weapons, not the best, talent-wise. Even offensive line, honestly. Their offensive line isn't spectacular by any means. Yeah. I mean, it's good enough, but it's not I wouldn't call it a strength. At the end of the day, when you throw Mahomes into the mix and he's playing like this, they're going to be in the conversation every year. And I definitely, Bengals, like you mentioned, like both of us have mentioned here, the questions around Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. You lost Tyler Boyd. You could honestly be just left with Jamar Chase. And a lot of people forget, well, Joe Mixon in Houston, we don't have Joe Mixon anymore either. So a lot of people forget too, they took a hit to the running back as well. And Cindy, I guess to reverse it before we close things out, worst.
Oh, the
Let's go.
worst roster. Okay.
Probably what, New
It's
England?
I would say I would say New England. I kind of want to say the Panthers. I know we have
Yeah, I want
given
to
the
say the Panthers
Panthers
too.
a lot of bad rep over the last few episodes, but hey, they're getting a new stadium, so that is something to look
That is
forward to, or
true.
at least there's renderings for it. But I would, I would probably say New England. I mean, the Panthers have names. It's just they don't have anyone to. Well, at least last year, nobody to protect Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Now they do, hopefully. So I don't think it's the Panthers.
Yeah, I
Actually, it's
agree.
the Broncos. It's
Because
the
they did add
Broncos.
Deontay Johnson. Not that that's
And
huge,
great
but it's
draft with Jonathan Brooks and Jatavion Sanders. Like
yeah.
they had a great draft.
Xavier
It's not
Legette.
the Patriots. Yeah, legit as well. So it's gonna be Broncos country. Let's ride. They have the worst roster in
Broncos.
football. It's terrible.
By the way, Zach Wilson out of Benjamin Albright, who covers the Broncos for um covers the Broncos. I'm not sure of his outlet. Um he is for KOA Colorado. So it seems like a news station, but he covers the Broncos. And he said today about Zach Wilson. This is how the 3 practices that have been open to the media. He'd rate Stidham as the best, quarterback 1, Nick's QB 2, and Zach Wilson QB 3. Zach Wilson QB 3 of a quarterback room that includes Jared Stidham and a rookie. What a time to be alive. We're witnessing history, folks. This guy is worse than Johnny Manziel.
That is, and Johnny Manziel doesn't even watch film. Zach
No, he
Wilson
doesn't. That's
probably
the
does.
sad part. Zach at least tries to watch film. He
That's
just
bad.
sucks at football.
Oh, that's bad. This is gonna be a bad year. I mean, if they land Shador Sanders next year, all should be. I highly doubt they draft a quarterback next year. So
Imagine they land
I don't
Shador
know.
Sanders and he
Yep.
doesn't he doesn't leave Colorado.
That yeah. I did not think about that. He's already there. I don't know. If I'm the Broncos, you're probably drafting Travis Hunter. I don't think you're going with another quarterback. Travis Hunter most likely. I don't know. They have it bad. They really have it bad.
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny. You look at ESPN FPI, Football Power Index. Um, it goes Carolina, New England, Denver, Giants, Commanders are your bottom 5. So we're just about spot on when it comes to Denver being really bad. The
We are
Giants
spot
too.
on. Yeah, I mean, especially with Darren Waller expected to
Yeah.
retire,
Yeah. Well,
that
that
takes a
guy,
hit.
he had to have had one of the biggest fall offs. He gets traded to the Giants, terrible year, and is just now like, oh, I'm done. Let me retire. Let me make terrible rap
Okay,
music.
respectfully, R&B, but hear me
Oh,
out.
I'm sorry.
Hear me out. If you and your wife got a divorce and you had to go catch footballs from Daniel Jones every week and wear those throwback uniforms and play on MetLife
No,
turf,
those are
would
bad.
you be okay in the head?
No, no, I would not be.
Exactly. My point exactly. And my point exactly. You got to drive 45 minutes from your house to New Jersey, which you live in New York, right? You said you live in New York.
I'm Jersey.
Your jersey, okay. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna
You
say
could.
that.
It's not that great. I'll be honest.
It wasn't
Couple
that
nice
great.
golf courses here and there. Crappy
It was
football teams. That's about what we're good
the
for.
the mall was amazing. Like you had an indoor Nickelodeon park, you had a water park. That mall is phenomenal. But then you look across the street and then you see MetLife over there.
Yeah, the
So
world's
if you're
giant air
Darren
conditioning
Waller,
event.
exactly. If you're Darren Waller, you gotta drive 40 minutes to practice. You and your wife divorced, and you're on the complete opposite side of the map. Daniel Jones is your quarterback. You're wearing those ugly uniforms, and you're playing MetLife. It's bad all around. I don't blame him. I
Yeah,
don't blame
yeah. I don't. There's a certain point too where I don't blame him either. Honestly,
him. Like it's just I get it. That's all I'm gonna say. I get it.
he's been that bad. So yeah. Wearing those uniforms. Oh my god. Yeah, you reminded me of the uniforms. I'm getting like uniform flashback when those things got released. You know what's funny is there's somebody I know, a friend of mine, liked those uniforms. I'm like, all right, all right. You know that
I,
meme of the guy on the bench? He's like, you know what I mean? I'm like, okay,
I
you
he
do
is
you.
in
You can
the
blow $80. I'm gonna keep my $80 nice and safe. Or not even
80
$80.
bucks.
That's like
Those
120.
definitely go for like 120, 140. So right
Yeah.
now it seems he is already in the denial phase, which usually is phase two. The first phase is anger. Phase two is denial. He is in the denial phase. He already knows the year is going to go bad. Uniforms are ugly. So then you give it that. I mean, I've seen worse.
Yeah.
You have not seen worse. Not in the NFL, at least. Those are bad. Denial phase for him. So phase three is acceptance,
Yeah.
to where you just kind of figure out like all
Accept your
things are
fate
bad.
and burn the jersey.
That's literally it. He'll be burned by week 5.
Yeah. When they're 0-4.
Oh, 4-1.
Yeah, 0-4-1.
So
They'll
sorry,
probably
week
tie the
6 when
Vikings.
they're 0-4-1.
Yeah. He'll be burning it. Honestly, he might they lose to Washington, you might just have to call quits. I will say though, those jerseys do provide a little bit of an advantage to the Giants because if you're the opponent, you've got a ton of pressure on you. You cannot lose to Daniel
You,
Jones wearing that uniform. Daniel Jones is the only player in NFL history I've ever seen like have no drip in a jersey release. Nothing. Nothing. It literally looked like they put a Costco worker in a football uniform and said, "Hey, stand here so we could show off these new ugly uniforms that we're going to put in the retail section or not retail, clearance. I'm sorry, clearance. We're throwing the clearance section. $20 off. Get your New York Giants, Montreal Canadiens football jersey.
I'm
Oh, and
I'm
8,
convinced. I'm
getting ready to
convinced I
take
know the
Shadeur
plan.
Sanders in April."
I know the plan. I know the plan. You buy a jersey, you get 3 tickets free because there's no way they are actually selling tickets out for Giants games. So to your friend's point, you can't even burn the jersey because if you burn it, it's probably just going to flip the colorway of like the jerseys. So you don't want to do that. Those jerseys are. I think you just said it perfectly. They just threw like a random like Toyota worker in those uniforms. Like, hey, come model these for us, and let's see how many we can sell because those were bad, and they will be on clearance by week 8. I think you caught that perfect.
Yeah, it's used car salesman inside a football helmet. The dude that gets the floaty the dude that gets the get and go every
Yeah,
day.
the
Yeah,
arm floaty thing.
he does it for a living. Gets up in the morning,
Oh,
probably takes like a 15-minute drive, you know, heads over to the Giants training facility, puts on the uniform, probably feels worse than he does after he comes home from a hard day at work.
I know Daniel Jones probably uses the newspaper like every morning, newspaper and coffee, drive. It's like, oh, do I really have to be here?
Yeah. Tommy DeVito.
Basically,
God, Tommy DeVito, what a run. What a run that was.
What a run.
That
And
was the most, that might have been the biggest Linsanity NFL run.
oh, absolutely. And he had the drip to like back it all up.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Just we would never see that type of aura in a Giants jersey
No.
ever again.
No.
Never again.
The Giants have had no drip ever at quarterback. Eli
No,
Manning.
Tyrod Taylor. That's it.
Tyrod,
That's
yeah,
the only
Tyrod,
one. That's
Tyrod,
the
that is
only
true.
one.
Tyrod has drip. Eli, though, no drip.
None
Daniel
at all. Especially
Jones,
with the hand
no
warmer.
drip.
No, no drip, no
See,
aura running through that
the,
team
the
whatsoever.
thing with Eli, he got away with it because he won. Daniel Jones doesn't win. So he looks bad and he win. And he looks bad and he plays bad. He doesn't win. So
Lose. That is unfortunate.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts? Sorry, Giants fans. This was your week. Usually we're
I was
bad
just
to
saying,
Carolina.
I was just about to say Carolina. We gave you a break this week. We picked the Giants, and we got Washington next week. That is it for today.
Anyway, that'll do it. We will be back next week. Washington fans, be ready. That's your week for slander. So we will talk to you then. Obviously, all things NFL news. First episode of June, a lot more to come. Summer's upon us, so exciting times. That will do it. As always, please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.